Hello everybody, Luigi FanQuadro1 here once again, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at all the plants in my Plants vs. Zombies plush collection, but this time... Since when did Homing Thistle have a plush? I bet it's nothing. Since when did Primal Potato Mine get a plush? Since when did Sunbeam get a plush? Jeez! A lot of plants have come out recently, and I think it's high time we take a look at each of them. But not in the traditional sense that you may think. For this video, we're going to be looking at all the plants in my Plants vs. Zombies plush collection and judging them accordingly based on their designs. Now, they're ranked on a few factors. 1, judging from their designs accordingly and how they look compared to their in-game counterparts. 2, if I like the plant or not. And 3, if I like the design. And remember, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. If you have a different opinion than me, then let me hear it. I want to see in the comments. For example, if you think I ranked Applebomb too high or too low, then let me know. While you're there, be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. But enough of the intro. Let's get started. Starting off, we have the one and only Pea Shooter. This Pea Shooter comes to us from Leanson and is a very solid plush. When it comes to plush as a whole, this plush is very iconic and is seen frequently on many websites. The only nitpick I would have to say are the leaves. The Pea Shooter design has 4 leaves, Pea Shooter here only has 3, but regardless, it's still solid enough, and Pea Shooter is just a solid design in general. I just think the plush is neat, he's just solid. Here's another Leanson plush. It's a little floppy, as you can see here. Not necessarily as good as the regular Pea Shooter plush, which has a nice firm neck. This one's just very floppy, might be bootlegged, I'm not sure. Tends to attack the other plants with its head just because it can. And here is the Jazwares Pea Shooter. Note the correct number of leaves. The plush also would come with a pea that would shoot out of its mouth, and honestly I think it looks better without the pea. Also has a little speakery box in the back of its head. Leanson Pea Shooter gets a solid A tier. The floppy one gets a B tier because the design is fine, but the neck is very floppy, while the Jazwares plush gets an S. Next is the Leanson Sunflower plush. Just like with Pea Shooter, this plush is iconic, seen everywhere, and looks very solid. Looks just like how she does in-game, aside from, again, the incorrect number of leaves. Something that the Jazwares Sunflower corrected with the correct number of leaves. The Jazwares plush seems to take inspiration from her Plants vs. Zombies 2 design, whereas the original is clearly from Plants vs. Zombies 1. Regardless, both plush still look fantastic and are getting very high rankings. Sunflower gets an A, while Sunny gets an S. Next is Cherry Bomb. I just like the design of the cherries themselves. Even though the smaller cherry doesn't have that little tooth on it, I just like the design a lot more than how it looks in game. I know it's not 100% accurate, but it still looks good, and it's actually a plant that I like the plush of more than its actual in-game counterpart. S tier. Next is Potato Mine from Leanson, and honestly, this one also looks fairly solid. No real complaints here, aside from, I guess, the little design in the teeth need to be a little more closer to the center, but otherwise it looks fairly good. This is the Potato Mine when it's active, and in contrast we have the bootlegged Leanson Potato Mine, which is a little smaller in design, doesn't look as potato-like as it were, and looks more like a cantaloupe if you want my personal opinion. Interesting material they used for the little antenna, but still, okay. Potato Mine gets an S. S for Spadow. Little Potato Mine gets a B. Next are the Pippi Girl and Leanson 2 Walnuts. No real complaints here. I mean, maybe this one's bootlegged, I'm not sure. Someone in the comments will likely tell me that it is or not. No complaints. I guess maybe the shading on the Pippi Girl Walnuts alright, but otherwise they look really good. The PopCap Games Walnuts also pretty good. Not really a fan of how flat it is, but otherwise fairly solid. Larger walnuts are gonna get an S, while the smaller walnut gets an A. Next is the Leanson Snow Pea plush, and honestly, it's okay, I guess. I mean, like the other Pea Shooter plush, it has 3 leaves instead of 4, but compared to the actual design, just looks kinda to me. C for cold. Smack dab in the C tier. Next is the Leanson Chomper, and yeah, I mean, you all probably know he's not gonna get a very high rank. I mean, someone in the comments in one of my recent videos, and you know who you are, actually questioned me as to why I still use this Chomper because, oh, how dare he has a face. Well, the reason I still use this Chomper is because, hey, I like him. I mean, yeah, it's weird, and I know it's based off that one artwork seen on the screen here, but I don't know, it makes him look more unique to me. It makes him stand out, and the fact that my Chomper also has yellow spikes just makes him stand out a little more. I don't know. Yeah, again, because he's got the little eyes and nose in the front, he is gonna get knocked down a few pegs. If he just looked like this, then yeah, he'd be fine. But also, as for the Jazwares Chomper plush, it just looks perfect, honestly. I like the articulation in the stem, and in general, the Chomper design is just perfect. So, A for Audrey? No, S. Oh, I'm sorry, Chomper, you get a D. I'm sorry. Now for uh-oh, we have a newcomer on the roster. That's right, this is the Cowboy Hat Puff Shroom from Leanson 2. In general though, the plush is okay, and I wish they made a regular Puffshroom plush without the hat, but for what it is, still looks good. As for the crocheted Puffshrooms, they're all really cute. I had 12 of these little dudes made. They do have little minor design inaccuracies, but I still like them. I still think they're cute. I'm gonna put all the little Puffshrooms into the A tier. While Cowboy Hat Puffshroom gets a B tier, just because I wish we had a regular Puffshroom, but B tier is still really good, so don't get the wrong idea. Next, by Leanson, we have Sunshroom. Fairly okay overall, pretty average across the board. They kind of went crazy with the spots in the front and in the back. As for the face for the plush, it looks different. Looks very cute, but doesn't really scream Sunshroom to me. Looks more like it would be for a design like Blowover or Cattail or maybe some other plant. Never understood why they gave Sunshroom a cat face, but it's alright. Pretty average, middle of the road, C tier. Next is Fumeshroom by Leanson, and automatically I have to knock off a few points for his design. The spots are just solid circles and they aren't really detailed like how they look in game, and for lacking the pupils that he does in game as well. The fume cap isn't really as large as I would like it to be, and in general the bottom part of the plush is a little too green. I still like Fumeshroom, I still think this plush is fine as it is, but if we're looking from a critical lens, then yeah, I gotta judge him accordingly. I hate to do this, I'm sorry, D tier. There you go. Next we have the bootlegged Hypnoshroom, and yeah, I'm not really a fan of this one. The eyes are connected as opposed to how they look on the regular design, and in general I'm not really a fan of how the cap looks. Like, it starts off okay, but as you keep looking at it longer and longer, it just looks like a really weird tie-dyed mess. I like Hypnoshroom, and in the show I do like Hypnoshroom as a whole, but I'm sorry, but...
Oh no, you can't hypnotize me! You're still going to get an F!
Next is Scaredy Shroom, a custom-made plush. Looks fairly solid. I like the cap especially. I like the little eyebrows right here on the plush itself. My only issue with this plush is the body. The color is incorrect, but otherwise looks pretty good. Pretty good across the board in my opinion. I'm going to give Scaredy Shroom a B. Next is a custom Ice Shroom plush, and honestly, doesn't really look like a mushroom. Looks more like a little lava guava, but infused with a little bit of ice. Still looks good, don't get me wrong, and I think the ice crystals are really, really nice looking, especially just the ones on top of his head. But a mushroom he is not. At least he looks better than his Plants vs. Zombies 2 design. Yeesh. Those ice crystals really do save Ice Shroom, and I do like the plant itself, so C tier. C for Citron's mom. What? Alright, who we got next? Who we go? Oh no. Ah boy, Doomshroom, what did they do to you? Here is Doomshroom, made by Leanson, and this plush looks okay at first glance, but then you remember this is supposed to be a plush of Doomshroom. Where are the red eyes? Where is the mouth? Why is his cap colored incorrectly? I thought he was supposed to be black, not gray. His head is a little too big, the stalk's a little too chunky, just, I don't know, he's a very weird looking plush, and just... he looks more like a Pikmin enemy than he does a Doomshroom, but an attempt was made. I like Doomshroom, I really do, but this plush just ain't it.
Doomshroom, you think I'm going to give you a D for your name? Well, guess what? I'm giving you an F!
Something's bubbling down below. It's Lilypad. This is the Heliworld Lilypad, and before we begin with my ranking for this plush, I need to note, these are not the original eyes for the plush. The reason why we fixed the eyes is because the vinyl leather material used for the eyes was falling apart. Lilypad had gone into the pool one too many times and was always a pain to dry off, and over time the eyes would chip away due to going into the water too many times. I'm not going to be getting rid of Lilypad anytime soon, so that's why we decided to customize the plush. My issue is, ironically, with the eyes. They're really angry looking for some reason. We tried to recreate the original plush's design, which I will show on screen right now. Again, looks different due to the eyes being angry and being white instead of yellow. Otherwise though, he looks pretty nice, and I do really like Lilypad, so I'm gonna give him a B. Next is the Leanson Squash. Aside from a few minor inaccuracies, like the warts for example aren't on the plush and doesn't exactly have the bags under his eyes like the actual Squash, but really, it looks really good. It looks like Squash, so A tier. Okay, S tier. Next is the bootlegged 3-peater plush, and honestly, I'm not really a fan of this one. I mean, it just looks kinda lazy, and like many of the other plants, it has 3 leaves on bottom instead of 4, but that's not my big issue. My big issue is just, it looks kind of sloppy compared to some of the other plush on the list. And yes, I know it's bootleg, but still, it just doesn't look very good. Also, the 3-peaters are missing the little leaves on the back of their heads. They're not really as tangled as they should be if you're trying to reference the first game's 3-peater. If you're trying to reference the second game's 3-peater, I get it, but they don't really look like pea shooters. They look like little bell sprouts. Not really a big fan of this guy. You've heard of 3-peater, now how about D-tier Peter? Oh, that's not funny. Next is Jalapeno by Leanson. Linkson, and again, I really like how the jalapeno turned out. Yeah, he doesn't look accurate to the actual game design, but still looks recognizable. I also like how the plush has a little lily pad to help him stand up. Sure, there are other jalapeno plush that don't have the lily pad, but I don't know, I like this dude. Not as much as I like Cherry Bomb, but still, A tier. Next is a custom Torchwood plush. Fairly solid across the board if you want my opinion. In general, the plush looks really nice. Plant is based off of his Plants vs. Zombies 2 design, hence the design for the mouth. Everything looks pretty good on this plush. I like the little threads here that indicate the bark, and the thread underneath the base of Torchwood as well. Like the little roots here, and in general, very solid. S. Next is a custom Spikeweed plush, based off his design from Plants vs. Zombies 2. And in general, I like how Spikeweed looks. I like how the front just looks like the regular Spikeweed, then you see the back, and there's even more spikes for the Spikeweed. I just have a spike here, there a spike, everywhere a spike, E-I-E-I-O. He looks really good. I love Spikeweed on the channel too. As a plant, I really do enjoy using Spikeweed, so that's really gonna help his ranking, and S. Next we have... no, it's Tall Nut. Great. This plush, or rather this pillow, was made by Sunnylove, and other than maybe a few minor inaccuracies with like the color of the plush and maybe the mouth, I guess, it doesn't really matter because the way how the plush is designed just looks really, really good. And yeah, I know on the channel Tall Nut's kind of a punching bag, but here, Tall Nut's risen to the top. Into the S tier you go. Wait, it should say T on there. For what? T for Tall Nut. Should be the Tall Nut tier. Just get in the S tier before I change my mind. Next is a custom Sea Shroom plush. I like how the plush looks, I like how accurate the face looks, the number of spots on the plush's head, they kind of went all out with the plush, and I like the little vines underneath for the plush as well. Surprises me that Sea Shroom's in Plants vs. Zombies 2 finally, but here we are. S. S for Sea Shroom. Wait, he gets S for Sea Shroom and I don't get T for Tall Nut? This is some... oh. Alright, in you go. Next are the Blover duo, both of which have good qualities and qualities. Let's start off with the Linkson Blover, which has a nice solid design as a whole. In general, the plush looks good aside from the face. The face is actually better on the Pippi Girl plush, but the base is better on the Linkson plush. It's a little big, but it makes sense so that way the plush can actually stand up properly. And as for the Pippi Girl plush, it looks fine. The head's a little small, but otherwise, they're both good. I'm gonna give the Blovers an A. What, you think I'd give B for Blover? Nah. Next on the list is, oh boy, the Linkson Cactus plush, also known on the channel as Paco. Looks fairly solid, aside from the spikes and the pupils being the incorrect color. They should be red. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter to me. The plush looks really nice otherwise. Like, it's a solid looking plush. And the same applies with the Garden Warfare 2 variant, which is the modern Paco that we know today, which I have no complaints. This is just perfection. The Linkson Cactus gets A tier, while the Jazzwares Cactus gets S. Next is Split Pea, and honestly, this one's kind of alright, I guess. My main issue is mainly with the heads. Why are both heads attached to the stem? I thought Split Pea was supposed to be a Gemini, with the repeater head stuck to the back of the pea shooter head, like this. And like many of the other plants, there's 3 leaves down here instead of 4, and the eyebrows are the wrong color, but for what it is, the plush still looks fine. C tier. Next is Starfruit, and at least he looks like a star, I guess? Really, his face is just way too big compared to his in-game design. And where the heck is his tooth? And where are the sparkles in his eyes? It's just like the lack of detail on this plush. It's crazy to me. But again, at least he looks like a star, and at least he's got the little stem on his head that's the correct color, so... should I put him in F or should I put him in D? I don't know. I'm gonna go with... yeah. Next is Pumpkin, and yes, I know this plush was made by Build-A-Bear, but he looked so good that I decided to add him onto the roster as well. And yeah, I know it's not really fair to judge his design accordingly, but if the other plants are going to be judged for their designs, then so can Pumpkin. And honestly, aside from the little green stems on the top of his head, the plush looks good. Sure, he doesn't have the same goofy looking smile as the regular Pumpkin, but the thing I really like about this plush that makes him stand out is just how elastic he is. Being able to fit over another plush's body is just really cool, and it really fits for the character because of how he protects plants in game. I'm gonna give Pumpkin a C. Yes, I know he doesn't look like how he does in game, but he looks good enough to be part of the cast, so I'm still going to include him, and I still think he looks fine for what he is. Next is the Pippi Girl Magnet Shroom, and honestly, the only thing I don't like about the plush is the mushroom itself underneath the giant magnet. There's no spots on it, and it looks like a waddle more so than it does a mushroom. Don't really have any complaints otherwise. B tier. Next is the Pippi Girl Cabbage Pulp plush, and many of the pulp plants have this issue where their catapults are gone. Otherwise, Cabbage Pulp here looks pretty good. I mean, yeah, he looks a little more square than a rounded cabbage, but he still looks fairly nice. B tier. Next is the Linson Colonel Pult, and yeah, the eyebrows are the wrong color, there's no catapult, and in general the leaves don't really look the way they should in game, but I think Colonel Pult here looks fairly solid, and I really like the texture here to imitate the appearance of corn too. Colonel Pult just looks good. Looks really good. But uh-oh, we have another Colonel Pult plushie. This one actually has the catapult on top of his head, and also has the correct eyebrows too. However, unfortunately, the leaves are still positioned in the upward position, and the plush has eerie red eyes for some reason. Lastly, I'm not a fan of the design. It looks more like a giant stick of butter, or maybe like a giant popcorn kernel, more so than an actual corn cob. Like, they heard the word kernel, and they immediately just made a giant kernel cob as a plush. So, of the two, I prefer the original. I'm giving the original an A tier, new plush a C, because at least he has the catapult. Next is the Pippi Girl Marigold plush, and to be honest, the only issue I have with the plush are, again, the aforementioned leaves. I'm gonna give Marigold an A. Next is Umbrella Leaf from Hello World, and if I'm being honest, the plush kind of looks more like a radish than it does Umbrella Leaf, and the number of leaves on the head being 4 instead of 7. Regardless, the plush still looks fine. It's a decent looking plush, just not my favorite. I'm gonna give Umbrella Leaf a C, but it's a very low C. Next is the Linson Melon Pult, and okay, to be fair, I do think the plush looks cute, but there are a few inaccuracies, like the catapult as aforementioned with the other two pults, the way how the stem here is off to the side instead of on the back, and the fact he's got a little smiley face. I'm not going to take away points for that because I think it makes the plush look cuter, but I do have to knock off several points for the design. I still like the plush though, so I'm not going to knock him down too far and give the plush a C. Next on the list is the World Max Gatling P, and I gotta say, this one looks absolutely perfect. In terms of his design, he looks really nice. In general, Gatling P was my favorite plant a long time ago in a video that no longer exists on the channel. I like how even if you remove the helmet, you get the little repeater leaf. I also like the little strap here and how it can actually connect in place. Very nice looking plush. S tier. Next is the Linson Twin Sunflower, also known as the first ever plant plush seen on the channel in a video, specifically Zombie Gets His Brain, which was the pilot or prototype for Plants vs. Zombies plush. As for Twin Sunflower though, there's a reason I don't really use them a lot in my videos. I just don't really care for the design, to be honest. Yeah, it looks accurate and all that, but I'm just not really a fan of how the plush looks. I'm gonna give Twin Sunflower a C, mainly because I just don't really care for the design. Next is Gloom Shroom, which is a bootleg plush based on the Pippi Girl Fume Shroom plush, and it doesn't really look that great in my opinion. Just the way how the plush looks, you'll be looking at the little funnels of the plush more so than the face. If the face was positioned a little more in the downward position, I'm sure it would have been a little better, but where it stands, the plush has to sit at a certain angle, and even then, it looks more like it's got a bunch of little smokestacks off to the side more so than looking like a Gloom Shroom. It looks more like a little bacteria than it does Gloom Shroom, and I'm not really a fan of the face either. It's just kind of there. Even when I first got this plush, I just wasn't really a fan of this one.
Gloom Shroom, I should give you a G, but it would be the only grade worse than an F!
Next is Cattail by Linson, and honestly this plush is almost completely perfect. Like, aside from the mouth, it looks like you took Cattail right out of the game itself, and really, I don't really think it having a little open mouth knocks down its score. I think it adds to the plush's charm, but that's just me. As for the Pippi Girl plush, it looks fine as it is. I'm not really a fan of the little plastic nose, but that's just me. Still looks cute, but I definitely prefer the Linson plush over the Pippi Girl one. Linson Cattail gets an S, while Pippi Girl Cattail gets a B. Next is Gold Magnet from Linson, and to be honest, aside from the little dirt mound and aside from the miscoloring on the eyebrows, I think Gold Magnet's pretty good. I mean, he's not the best plush in the world, but he's still fairly solid, and for Linson, he looks, well, good. B tier. Next is the Linson Winter Melon plush. It's literally the same plush as Melon Pult, except now it's blue. All the same issues of Melon Pult apply to this plush as well. I would put Winter Melon in the C tier, but no. They had time to update the plush, and they had time to remove the mouth, and they had time to give the plant proper upgrades, but they didn't. They just recolored a Melon Pult and called it a day, so for that, D tier. Next is the World Max Cob Cannon tissue box holder, and this one's one of my favorites. Just, I find it fascinating that he's actually a tissue box holder instead of a plush. I don't know where that decision came from, but I kinda like it. It's just so out there, and the plush looks really nice, and looks pretty dang accurate too. So for that, Dolan is going to launch himself right into the S tier. Next is the Linson Imitator plush, based off of his design from Plants vs. Zombies 2. To be be honest, I'm not really a big fan of this guy. I mean, for one, he just looks kind of derpy. He's got arms instead of the little roots that he's got. His hat looks weird, and where the heck are his eyebrows? In general, I'm not a fan of this guy, and you can see why I made him a villain in Pea Shooter and Paco.
Imitator, they say you can transform. Why don't you transform into an elf?
Next is the Linkson Bloomerang plush. Older fans of the channel may know I didn't really like Bloomerang at first, but he's grown on me over the years, and yeah, he's alright. The plush itself is pretty good, missing a few boomerangs on the head, and the leaves are 3 instead of 4, as per usual with the Linkson plush, but otherwise, looks pretty solid. Gonna give Bloomerang a B. B for Bloomerang. Next is the Linkson Iceberg Lettuce plush, and to be honest, it looks good. Sure, it has the base with the 3 leaves like many other Linkson plush, but honestly I think it adds to the plush's design. It looks fine, and it looks like it's a part of the plush itself, so I don't really see an issue with it. And also, who can resist those big old eyes? I know I certainly can't. Iceberg Lettuce is close to the S tier, but in my opinion gets a very high A. Next is the Jazzwares Bonk Choy plush. I think the plush looks really nice, but unfortunately the design of the plush itself is kind of eh. I like the articulation in the arms, but unfortunately when using him to swing his arms around to hit zombies, the cleaners inside of the plush tend to fall out, which I'm not really a fan of. I know it's kind of a me issue more than anything else, but I don't know, I'm just not a fan. As for the Linkson version of the plush, I just do not like the design, especially when compared to the Jazzwares version. It just does not look good in my eyes. He just looks kind of derpy. Just, there's a reason he's not really on the channel all that much. I'm gonna give Jazzwares Bonk Choy an A.
As for the imposter, you get an F!
Next is the Jazzwares Snapdragon plush, and to be honest, I have no real issues with this guy. He looks really, really good. There's a reason I used him quite a bit in the early days of Plants vs. Zombies plush, because his design just looks good. I also like how underneath his big ol' angry unibrow are little nervous looking eyes. He just looks like a little kicked puppy, and I think that's kind of cute. There's also the custom Snapdragon, which also kind of has the eyes, but not really, and doesn't have the little spines on the stem of the plant. Jazzwares Snapdragon gets an S, whereas the custom Snapdragon gets an A. Next up is the Coconut Cannon from Linkson, also known on the channel as Mr. Coconut. Mr. Coconut here, aside from maybe a small hiccup with the mouth not having a white rim, instead having a yellow one, the plush otherwise looks really good. I really like how Mr. Coconut here looks, and in general, I don't really think the issue with the mouth is enough to knock off very many points. I'm gonna give Coconut Cannon the A tier. Next is this bootleg Spring Bean plush, and my main issue with the plush are the eyes. They're just way too small compared to how he looks in game, and in general he just doesn't look very good. He just looks kind of derpy to me. Like, he's not the worst plant design in the world, but he's still just kind of doesn't really do it. I like how there's a little wire inside of the bottom of the plush to give it that springy feel. There's also one on the top of his head as well, but I don't know, he just doesn't really do it for me. D tier. Next is the Linkson Chili Bean, and to be honest, this one doesn't really do much of anything for me. I mean, he just exists. He doesn't do anything too offensive to really make me say, oh my god, that plush looks awful. He just looks, fine. C for Chili Bean. Blanc. Next up is a 2-for-1 deal. We have a bootleg Lightning Reed, and we have the Linkson Lightning Roger. Now, both of them look kind of similar to their counterpart, but also not really. Let's start with Lightning Reed first. He's got the right color, and he's got the right shape, I guess, but honestly, the base looks kind of especially when you look at Lightning Reed. Really don't like how the bootleg plush here uses glue to hold the two segments together, especially when it's this poorly made. It's just really going to hit Lightning Reed's score really hard. The only reason I'm going to give Lightning Reed a spot above F is because I do like Lightning Reed, both as a character and in general, just I like his ability. And as for Roger, well, his base should not exist. It's not like the case with, say, Gold Magnet, because he's so top heavy his head will fall backwards regardless of his base. He does have that little lightning bolt looking design, but aside from that, and aside from the head having a similar shape, it doesn't really feel like Lightning Reed to me. It feels more like Thymorb than it does Lightning Reed. I'm not going to give Lightning Roger an F tier either, because I do like the design for the plush, but that's the reason why I call him Lightning Roger instead of Lightning Reed, because he's really his own character at this point. I'm gonna give both brothers a D, because I do like the characters, but again, their designs are just so far off. Lightning Reed in particular, that glue just looks really bad. Next is the Linkson Laser Beam plush, and honestly, aside from the little ring missing around the antenna, the plush looks perfect. Like, I really love how Laser Beam turned out here. He just looks solid across the board, and honestly, the ring isn't too much of an inaccuracy for me to notice. Like, if you would have said this was the official design for the plant, I would have believed you. Like, he looks really good. Laser Beam gets an S. Next from Linkson, he's handsome, he's dashing, he's gorgeous, he's devilishly devious. It is the one, the only Citron. And yeah, I know, his head is too small, his base is too big, but honestly, it kind of gives the plush a little bit more charm. Because I felt the original design for Citron had too big of a head, if you want my opinion. And honestly, just the way Citron's design looks for the face just looks really good. And plus, anyone who knows my channel knows how much I really love Citron, so you already know where he's going regardless. Citron is going right where he belongs, right into S. Uh-oh, we have a new plush. This is EM Peach from Link's In 2. EM Peach here looks pretty dang good. It has the opposite problem of Laser Beam, that being it has too many little rings around its antenna. 2 rings instead of 1. My only issue is that the little antenna can get creased, but honestly, just take good care of the plush and you should be fine. Welcome aboard. Into the S tier you go. Another rookie on the roster with the Link's In Sunbeam plush. However, this one's got glowing red eyes. I mean, the plush itself design-wise looks fine, but the way the eyes look, it's just so unnerving. He's just staring right into your soul. Just because I'm feeling nice, Sunbeam gets a B. Next is Homing Thistle, which, aside from the leaves here being glued onto the body, looks really nice. I really do like the design for Homing Thistle. Face looks perfect, and I like the little spikes all around the body and the little flower on top of his head. A tier. Next from Link's In 2, we have the Banana Launcher, and honestly, the Banana Launcher's issue is he's not derpy enough. It's clear that the Banana Launcher is supposed to be like a comedian-looking plush. He's supposed to be very humorous and very comedic. Not really feeling it with this dude. I feel like this dude is just an intern that they randomly found on the street and they brought him in, and he's trying to do his role, but he isn't really doing very well. Looks fine as it is. He looks like a banana, but I just wish they did a little more with the plush. B for banana. No, C. This is the Cold Snapdragon plush. This is a custom-made plush, and to be honest, it looks okay. My main issue is that you can see Cold Snapdragon's eyes, where on the original design you couldn't see the Cold Snapdragon's eyes. I really like how the colors look, and I love how fuzzy the mustache and the hair look on the plush. So I am going to knock down a few points, but not enough to give it a bad grade. B tier. Here's a Fire Pea Shooter plush. I mean, it looks just looks like the regular pea shooter, but recolored red. Honestly, it looks more like the Flaming Pea from Plants vs. Zombies Adventures more than the Fire Pea from Plants vs. Zombies 2. Still, though, it just doesn't look very good. D tier. Next is the Link's In 2 Lava Guava plush. This one looks really good. Unlike the Puff Shroom where you can't take off the hat, with the Lava Guava, if you want a regular one, just remove the headband. But honestly, I think the headband looks really nice on the plush. A tier. Next is Fat Beat, and honestly, the color is off, but I do like the design of the plush. I like the little headphones. They're a little rounder than usual, but I do like them. They really look nice on the plush. My only issue is that the headphones themselves are going into the beat itself, but that's not an issue with the plush, more so an issue with the original Plants design. Fat Beat gets the C tier. Next is Link's In 2's Electric Blueberry plush, which looks pretty solid, and yeah, it's got one too many leaves on the bottom. It actually has the opposite problem of many of the other plush, where it has too many leaves instead of one too few. Regardless though, still looks pretty accurate, and I really love the detail on the face. A tier. Next is another newcomer. We have Grape Shot this time, brought to us by Link's In 2, and my main issue with the plush is it's very congested and very cluttered. I know that's kind of the intention of Grape Shot, but I don't know, it just didn't really translate that well into plush form. It looks fine, but it's just not my favorite. Grape Shot's gonna get a C from me. Here's Pro. Oh my god, those eyes, oh my god, those eyes. This is the Link's In 2 Primal Potato Mine plush, and oh my god, those eyes. Freaky looking, like, I don't know. He's like, what are you on, Primal Potato Mine? The base of the design for the plush is good, and I like the little spikes, but those eyes really just, ugh. C tier. Just get it away from me. Next is this bootlegged apple mortar from Mexico, and where to begin? First off, it doesn't even look like an apple. It looks more like a tomato, if you want my opinion. Second off, the little stem on the top of its head you can barely even see. On the back of the plush, these look more like peppers, more so than apples ready to be launched. Not my favorite plush, but it's far from being the worst. D tier. We have another one of the new Link's In 2 plush. This is the Imp Pear. First time actually hearing of this plant because, I don't know, I've never seen him before, and I can't say I'm glad I have. Honestly, after looking at his in-game design, the colors are off, the eyes look weird, the teeth look weird. Really, the mustache is the only saving grace of the plush, because otherwise he just looks kind of meh to me, and I'm just not really a big fan of how he looks. D tier. Next on the list is this custom Ghost Pepper plush made by a buddy of mine. Unlike Ghost Pepper in-game, the plush here has rounder eyes as opposed to the oval-shaped eyes on the actual design, and the mouth on our Ghost Pepper is a little bit bigger. Regardless though, I still love the design of this plush. I think Ghost Pepper looks really cute. Ghost Pepper lands in the S tier. Next on the list is the Acidic Lemon, or the Acidic Citrus from Linsin. This is an exclusive plant to the Chinese version of Plants vs. Zombies 2. Don't really have many complaints about this plush. I like the design. It's a little simple, but that's fine. B tier. Next is the Linsin Fire Gourd, which looks almost perfect. Aside from the little blush under the cheeks, the plush looks really good, looks exactly as how Fire Gourd does in-game. All around, really, really good. Fire Gourd gets an S. Next is the Linsin Heavenly Peach plush, also from the Plants vs. Zombies 2 China edition. No real complaints here about the plush, just looks really good. Heavenly Peach gets a nice solid A tier. Running down the line is the Linsin Tactical Cuke plush. This one also looks really accurate, aside from the eyebrows being a little smaller than anticipated, and just in general he's got a really derpy looking face, which I really like. I just really love how he looks. Tactical Cuke gets an A. Next is the Linsin Bamboo Shoot. Again, these Kung Fu World plush look really good. Only issue is it's a little darker compared to his regular color in game, but that's not really that big of an issue to me. Still looks really nice. A tier. Next is the Linsin 2 Dragon Fruit / Pitaya. This one's always been a fan favorite of mine. I just loved introducing this dude in the snow level for Pea Shooter Paco. I love his personality, and in general, I guess he has a few minor inaccuracies like with the teeth, but he still looks really good. S tier. Next is the Linsin 2 Saucer Squash plush, which is probably one of my favorites of the group, just because of how cute it looks. Love the face, love the design. I'm just a sucker for UFO-styled stuff in general, and this plush is no exception. The only issue with this plush is, it's an alien! Rather than A for alien, we're gonna give Saucer Squash the solid S tier. Next is the Linsin 2 Morning Glory, or MC Glory plush. Not a fan of this one, just how it looks in general. The pot is definitely a look. It's just, I don't like it. The detail on the plush isn't really all that great. The face looks kind of okay. It's not really a fan of how this plush turned out. He just looks kind of eh. The head doesn't really sit right, and it's just not my cup of tea. D tier. Next is the Linsin 2 Tiger Stool plush, and honestly, I'm not really a big fan of this one. The printed on design just doesn't do it for me, and there's red, and more red all over the plush, especially with the eyes. But at least here, unlike say with Sunbeam, it actually makes sense if the plush is supposed to look like a tiger. I'm just not really a fan of how the overall design looks. It just looks kind of eh. I'm gonna give Tiger Stool a C. Another new plant from Linsin 2 is the Celebration Soda Palm, and looks more like a walnut to me than a soda palm. Like, it's supposed to be a palm tree with the little leaves on its head, but I'm just not seeing it. Is there supposed to be like a little cork on the top to make it look like a soda bottle? Because that would make more sense, and the inside just doesn't look very liquidy to me. I don't know, this one's really lazy, just not a fan of how this one came out at all. Nah, D. Next is Linsin 2's Bearberry Mortar, aka Kinney Cannon, and I'm not really sure what to make of this one. Its design compared to how it looks in-game is very, very different. I expected this little guy to run on his treads like a little go-kart or something, but its model looks in-game, it looks like a cannon. Like, I would have never guessed from this design it's supposed to be a cannon. I thought it would be like a little car or something, but the way how the body looks, it's not tall enough, but the design's a little wonky, but I do like the design and it looks really nice, so I'm gonna give this Bearberry Mortar a B. Next is the Linsin 2 Wax Gourd Guard. Actually looks pretty okay. I mean, like with Lava Guava, I'm interested as to why they decided to give it the little boxing costume, but it does give the plant a little more personality. I like how the plant is protected by the headgear, like they're actually ready for a fight. And also the plush in general looks pretty good. Not my favorite of the group, but still good. I'm gonna give Wax Gourd Guard a B. Next up is the Linsin 2 Eggplant Ninja, or Auburn Ninja, which also looks really nice. In general, just a solid look and design for a plant. This one actually looks intimidating. It looks like it would be a plant that would kick some grass and take out some zombies, you know? The costume is also nice because it fits with the plant's design. Auburn Ninja gets the A tier. Last of the Plants vs. Zombies 2 China Edition plush is the Magic Shroom by Linsin 2. Magic Shroom here is interesting to me. It's got a few inaccuracies, like the little little cards on the hat being printed on the hat itself instead of spinning around the plush, the bottom of the cap being pink instead of white, and of course those piercing yellow eyes. However, while the original design's actually pretty cute, I do like the yellow eyes on the plush because it makes it look more freaky looking. Like, this mushroom is definitely one of the freakier ones. Puts a new term on the phrase magic mushroom, so yeah, it's inaccurate compared to the old design, but I like it. The magic shroom gets A tier. We have 3 giant custom bosses, all from Garden Warfare 2, and we're going to show them off right now. Starting off with this custom plush of Spooky Squash. Spooky Squash looks really accurate to his in-game counterpart. Love how he looks, love how the material is. I know he's a later addition to the series, but I just love voicing Spooky Squash, and in general, he just looks really, really nice, and I'm happy to have him on the channel. Next is the infamous Royal Hypno Flower plush. That's right, the Royal Hypno Flower. Bask in her glory, bask in her villainy, bask in her hypnosis, for she is one of the best plush in the set. Like, oh my god. What am I supposed to say? Like, the design is perfect, the colors are perfect, the way the plush looks is perfect, the plush has some articulation in the leaves guarding her stem. Just in general, just a solid plush. And last of the Garden Warfare trio is Mac, the Giga Torchwood. By technicality, Mac himself does not have the Torchwood base. He instead has 2 giant feet to make him stand out a little more, and instead to show in Plants vs. Zombies plush that he's infected by Plantoid Z, making him stand out from a regular Torchwood by giving him the legs instead of the roots like a regular Giga Torchwood. So technically he should lose points because it makes him a little more inaccurate, but it makes him more unique as well, so I'm going to give him a pass. All 3 plants are getting the S tier, and it would be a crime to put them anywhere but the S tier. Make room for Mac. Our final category is for the oddballs. The oddballs are a group of plush that don't really fit anywhere else. We have Bananasaurus Rex. The plush was made by Linson 2. In general, doesn't really look like a plant though. It looks more just like a generic dinosaur, but hey, he's still technically a plant. He still counts, so I'm gonna include him. I'm gonna give Bananasaurus Rex a C. Next is the infamous Garlic Angel plush by Linson. This character is based off of artwork by Plenilune Fox. The characters weren't meant to be taken seriously, it was just made for fun. However, the plant's design was interpreted as a new character by lots of folks, myself included, as seen in a very old collection video that I made.
Garlic Angel is from Plants vs. Zombies 2. Do I have any information about the game? No, I don't. No info whatsoever. I just know that it's a new plant.
The Garlic Angel would not, but I did predict that the garlic would appear. How did I know this? Well, one doesn't like to blow one's own trumpet. As for the Garlic Angel himself, aside from the wings, it looks really, really nice. If you take the wings off, the garlic itself looks really, really good. But honestly, the wings themselves give another layer to the plush, and as such on the channel, he's used as a drone because, well, he can fly. A tier. Speaking of infamous, we have the single Cherry Bomb plush by Linson, or as I call it, the Apple Bomb. Ever since I referred to this thing as the Apple Bomb, everyone else has been following suit, and that's what the plush has been known as ever since. I love you all! Regardless, this one actually does use the yellow eyes that the original Cherry Bomb design had, which is kind of interesting to me. How come this one uses the yellow eyes, but the other Cherry Bomb uses white eyes? Like, I don't know, but regardless, I use this plush pretty frequently in videos because it looks like a weed. It is very ugly, but as a weed, it does the job well. D. Next is a Snow 3-peater by Linson 2, which is based off of fan art of all things. I mean, the same could also apply to some of the other plants as well, but this one in particular really takes the cake. However, it's just a recolor of the regular 3-peater plush. Sure, this one looks better than the other one, but that's because the other one was a bootleg. It still doesn't have the little leaves behind the head, the leaves on the bottom are still inaccurate, and it's still just not very good looking in my opinion. Not dissing the original design from the original artist, but the plush doesn't do it for me. D. Next is Dogtail, which is a bootleg plush, which is part of the Tail line in Plants vs. Zombies All-Stars. Looks pretty nice. Again, the quality is definitely a lot lower than, say, Cattail, but I do like the little fluffy tail of the Dogtail. If it had a higher quality, it would look a lot better, but for what we got, still looks pretty good. B tier. Next is the Smalapeno, a bootleg plush from Plants vs. Zombies All-Stars. This one's not really my favorite. It's literally just a copy-paste of Jalapeno, just turning a different way with a different face, and I don't know, the quality isn't very good on this one, I feel. It's just, D. Last but definitely not least, we have the Bursa plush from Linkson. Bursa is in the same ballpark as Garlic Angel, a hypothetical what-if scenario with fan art dedicated to a potential Plants vs. Zombies 2, but this one was translated into plush form, and honestly, aside from the eyes looking a little off, the plush looks really nice. There's also 3 leaves again instead of 4. In general, this one's really solid, and I could see him easily fitting into Plants vs. Zombies 2. A tier. Oh yeah, there's also this thing. It's not a white radish. It claims to be, but it's not. It's garbage. You know, you don't even get the Crocker F, you just get an F. So, these were all the plants in my Plants vs. Zombies plush collection ranked. And yeah, while there are a few of the new plants in the D tier, I am really happy to see new plush being made for Plants vs. Zombies. And we're at that part of the video where I answer questions. As per usual, I get these plush off of eBay, sometimes Amazon. Sometimes there's other auction sites I like to check out. Mercari's okay. I'm not really a big fan of Mercari. Their fees are a little high, and they're just kind of Had a bad experience with them in the past, mainly with customer service. Or lack thereof. I also use Etsy for the custom plush. Also, I use the Plants vs. Zombies plush wiki, which was a huge help in making this video, mainly with the different companies that were used for making the plush. They also have various websites on their site that you could check out, where you can find different plants or zombies from different websites. Another question would be, is there a plant that you would like to see as a plush? The answer to that is Infinite. I think he's one of the best plants in the game, defensive-wise, if you give him a plant food, and he was an absolute lifesaver when I used to play the game religiously back in the day. I'd also like to see a plush of Spike Rock because he's really the only upgrade plant that we haven't seen as a plush. The new wave of plants has also left me feeling optimistic, not just for new plants, but for new zombies too. Maybe we'll get a plush of Infinite, maybe we'll get a plush of Spike Rock, who knows? Only the future will tell. Well, I've run out of stuff to say again, which is kinda common at the end of these videos, so until next time, thank you for watching. This is Luigi Fan Quad 1 signing out, saying see you guys later, and have yourselves a fantastic day.
So, they forgot about the shopkeeper, left him high on the shelf. No matter. Want something done right? Do it yourself.